is Lorelia Brown-Phillips, host of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. And welcome. Thanks for joining me. So if you got on a little early, you probably saw me with my glasses on. So I had to take them off and adjust myself so I can get ready to share some New Year's information with you on what's to come in store for 2024 here on the Never Lose a Deal podcast. If you are watching me, you may be on YouTube or you may be listening on the various podcast streaming apps. We are on all the apps. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible, you name it, we are there. If you go to the links below this video, you will find us on whatever listening device you want to listen on. So today, my topic is the Stanley Cup and real estate funding success principles. Now, about a few days ago, well, let me retract before I go into that. Right now, it is as I film this video or do this audio for this podcast. Right now, unless you have been under a rock, the Stanley Thermal Cup is the most talked about item on the internet. And don't want to assume people know what it is because unfortunately I did not even know, but I saw it blasted all over social media. And so it intrigued me to look a little further to see what it is. So I'm not an owner of the cup, so I cannot show you the cup. But if you do a Google search or if you're on anywhere on social media, someone would be talking about the infamous thermal cup that is a product by a company called the Stanley Company, and it has been going bananas. It is the talk of the town on social media. I think the cup retails between $40 to about $60, depending on the type of cup. But people, because of all the hysteria, people have been reselling the cup on eBay and as well as, Facebook Marketplace or any other site for way over the retail price that is on the website. And so, this cup has been going for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So, okay, you may be wondering, okay, Lorelia, you said you don't own one. You said that, the hysteria around the cup is the reason why you, even knew about it. Then why talk about it? And I thought it was a good correlation because I sometimes, I see things on the internet and I consider it as internet musings and things that I see on the internet, and it'll pique me to see how can I correlate this with other areas of what I do in business. So I began to think, because a lot of people like myself were saying, what's the big thing about this cup? Why is this cup so popular? And I didn't ask that question about why this cup is so popular, because with anything in life, there is customers and clients for everything. It doesn't matter if it's a product, if it's a service, whether you take part in it or not, there are people who are buying. And so I didn't ask the question of why the hysteria, but I thought that I would do a little deeper information to learn more about this company. And so that is what I want to talk to you about today. I want to give you a clear correlation between what and how and who the Stanley Cup is and how it relates to if you are in the area of being a real estate investor, getting access to funding, and you may feel like things are slow. The Stanley Cup, and this is what I was saying earlier. A few days ago, I put on my Facebook, what is it called? That my Facebook wall, I can't even think of the terminology about the Stanley Cup, is just a little information about it. It's a company that's been around for 110 years. So it's been around for a very long time. And the revenues of the company have been going up and up and up since 2019. 2019, I stated the facts on my Facebook wall. I was reading the article, and that's how I was able to state the facts. But clearly in 2019, they grossed revenues of about 70 million. As of 2023, they closed the year out roughly at 423 million. So pretty much almost 10x their revenue from where they were in 2019 to now. So even during the pandemic, did you catch that? Pandemic occurred in 2020. Even due a pandemic where most people were feeling like, all is lost, the world is coming to an end, businesses are dying. Here, the Stanley Cup continued to grow as a company because the revenues did not go lower from 2019 to 2020. They went up. So every year from 2019 to 2020 to 2021 to 2022 to 2023, closing out the year, the revenues have been steadily going up. Now, the hysteria's here. Okay, hysteria's here. Now, one will say, now, of course, the Stanley Cup had always had its own market share. There was a group of customers and clients or product, enthusiasts who have been very familiar with the company. They had their core audience, they had their core client, they had their core customer who knows of the Stanley Cup, who are users. Well, lo and behold, as I learned with doing some research on this company, I found out that apparently sometime in 2019 that there was an influencer online who started talking about the Stanley Cup and the benefits. And so the company shot out, So, from this influencer or influencer community, I should say, it really snowballed. It snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. Hence, right now, I have a 14-year-old daughter who is literally asking for a Stanley Cup. And so the influencing community that, created, or should I say, was part of the hysteria that allowed this company to now take on market share of a group of people that they had never, marketed to, or whoever who was never familiar with their product. Now they are familiar with their product. Hence, I have a 14-year-old who's asking for a Stanley Cup. So how does this relate to what we do as in the world of real estate? So normally on this channel, primarily on YouTube, but I am podcasting, so you may be listening to the audio version of this. We are in a time and space now where a lot of people have been buying into the doom and gloom. And with that doom and gloom, people are saying there's a saturation. I did a video on this with business funding, and I talked about how that everyone is not the same in business funding. Every provider is not the same. Every customer is not the same. And I talked about that even myself, someone who is in the business funding space, someone who supplies funding, resources, consultations, advisement, am an advisor in terms of assisting real estate investors with getting funding, and others online may say they do that too, doesn't mean we're all the same. We all are not the same. That's almost like saying you can get a steak from Ruth Chris just like you can at Outback. And we clearly know that a Ruth Chris experience is different than an Outback experience. It doesn't mean that the food may not be good at Outback or Longhorns or any steakhouse that is in your neck of the woods, but Ruth Chris is a different type of customer, is a different type of client. And that is the same way with business funding. Everyone's not created equal. Just because a person says they do business funding and I say I do business funding doesn't mean that we do the same thing, doesn't mean that our clientele is not the same. Lorelia, what does this have to do with the Stanley Cup? If you've seen the product of the Stanley Cup, person like me who I'm not a buyer of Stanley. I wasn't familiar with Stanley prior to all this hysteria. It just looks like a regular cup. A cup that you can get from Walmart, 99-cent store, the supermarket. It just looks like a regular cup. But for the client base who has always been familiar with Stanley, because now you have the individuals who have always been buyers of Stanley Cup are now speaking up on social media, showing their old school Stanley Cup, saying that they're diehard Stanley customers. They've been buying Stanley for 20 years, for 30 years. The list goes on and on. They're showing their traditional old school Stanley Cup and comparing it to the new school Stanley Cup. How does this all come together, Lorelia? Although there are many thermal cup makers, they're not Stanley. Now, a person like me who's not in the market and who doesn't really relish with the fact of what Stanley stands for. Hey, I don't know, maybe the materials are made from the backwoods of, I don't know, somewhere out west, and and they're American. I don't know. I don't know what separates Stanley from the 99-cent thermal cup. I don't know. But the Stanley customer do. And I'm not even talking about those who just jumped on the bandwagon or part of the hysteria, but the people who have always been buyers of Stanley, they know what Stanley stands for. The same way with business funding. There are some people that, although they do business funding, they know who they stand for. They know what their principles are when it comes to funding, even their methodology. I tell people all the time, if you're that person who's just seeking a credit card and you're giving it the title of business funding, I'm not for you. If you're that person who's looking for a secrets lenders list and want to know how they can rob the bank, I'm not for you. I'm the business funding person that you understand that business funding is a tool that can be leveraged as part of the many tools that you may have in your real estate toolbox. And of that business funding tool, there are different areas that you may want to explore depending on what it is that you want to do in real estate. At times you may need credit cards, at times you may need term loans, at times you may need lines of credit, at times you may even need to raise capital. But I'm the person who's going to assist you to match where you're trying to go with the tool of business funding. Much different than the person who is just looking to get a business credit card. I'm not here to knock it, but I let people know that that's not my tool house. Like, find the person who's going to help you rob the bank, give you the secret lenders list, and help you get a business credit card. But that's not me. But let's talk about the other side of the success principles that we can learn from the Stanley Cup. Once again, revenues have always been going up. 2019, they ended the year at 70 million. Each year, the revenues went up and up and up and up. What happened during 2020 and 2021? We were dealing with a worldwide pandemic. Stanley Cup had no dips in revenue. If anything, the revenue went up. Okay, Lorelia, well, how does that relate to real estate? Well, how that relates to real estate, that with people saying interest rates are going up, there's a shortage of deals, there's other real estate investors who are still buying. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what economic market we're in, whether we're in a down market or an up market, whether we're in low interest rates or high interest rates, there is a real estate investor who buys in all cycles. And then there's that real estate investor who only buys based on the sound bites that they hear on TV or online. Interest rates are high, we don't buy nothing. Interest rates are low, okay, we go ahead and buy. Oh, there's a shortage. Oh, I'm not going to buy. There's no deals. They're not even looking. And my answer to that is, and I've told people all the time, there's no shortage of deals. In the month of December, I've had numerous banks who have sent me spreadsheets of assets that they are looking to sell off of their balance sheet. At the end of the day, who is the biggest controller of real estate in this country? There are two entities, hedge funds and banks. Whether you like it or not, they are two of the biggest entities that control real estate. Why would you? And that's why I said, depending on who you're listening to, why would I be a real estate investor who's looking to leverage capital that comes from different lending institutions? Don't matter who it comes from, whether it's the big banks or secondary markets or what have you. And I wouldn't want to partner with them. Now, it behooves me that someone would tell a person, create an adversarial relationship with the bank. We're going to rob the bank. We're going to do this to the bank. But that same person is trying to leverage capital from the entity that they want something from. It baffles me. And that's where the Stanley Cup success principle comes in, that there are always going to be different types of people, and there's always going to be different type of businesses. And when you're very clear with what you provide to the marketplace, and I'm talking from the business owner's perspective at this moment, if you are an investor who provides real estate, whether you sell it, where you buy it, or what have you, get very clear on what it is that you're looking to do. Because there's always a provider who can provide you with the solution. But that's only if you don't buy into the scarcity of it's only just enough. See, I learned in 2022 that the online space, when it came to business funding and real estate, that it was becoming a clown show. It was literally becoming a clown show. I saw that in the end of 2021 into 2022. I had been talking I have always been talking, educating individuals on this topic since 2018. I have the receipts. You go on my YouTube video, I have over 700, close to 800 videos. If you go to my channel, you can go as far back as 2018, 2017, where I have been talking about business funding and how to leverage it and how to leverage it for real estate. That's how far back I go back. In 2021, I began to see things were shifting, and it was becoming a clown show online. It was literally becoming a clown show. When it got to the point where, people were looking for a secrets lenders list, or people who don't have nothing but thinks this magic credit card is going to allow them to be a real estate millionaire. Whatever buffoonery people created, I knew that I did not want to be part of that circus. And I also knew that there was only a small microcosm. See, the online world is as much as people may think that it is, it's so magnified, you may feel like it's saturation, you may feel like, oh, everyone is doing it, and I get those who are not in the credit space, the funding space, they may not see that. But those who are in the funding space or are in the real estate space, they may feel like, oh my God, everyone is talking about this topic. Everybody's talking about funding. Everybody's talking about business credit. Everybody's talking about, real estate. There's so many people. But I knew that the online space was very small. It's like a pin. If you take a needle, the end of a needle, pin drop, it's in this small microcosm of a very big world, and that world can be offline. That world can be TV. That world can be networking groups. It's so many areas where everyone's not talking about it. So I knew in 2021, I begin to see this clown show take flight. 2022, I started looking for ways that I could still be able to provide a service, because I know that it is needed. There are real estate investors who are looking and understand the benefits of leveraging capital, because they understand the correlation between having debt in their business and how it creates wealth and how it lowers their tax liability. They understand that. And they're not looking for a magic credit card that's going to relieve them of all their financial stress, because they don't look as debt as financial stress. They look as debt as a way to build their real estate portfolio. The same way when I'm buying for my own personal portfolio or my business portfolio, I understand that debt is a vehicle. This is not for the two people, the one who feels like this one magic credit card is going to, make me a real estate tycoon. And I knew my messaging was not for the person who is like, I want to be a real estate millionaire, but I want to do it debt free. And I'm not here to say that neither one of those markets matter, but I just knew that those were not the individuals that I wanted to speak to. And as I began to see this clown show take flight online, and I knew that it was only a small microcosm of the world, I said, let me start making some changes. And so when 2023 came in, like I said, in 2022, I started to really gauge on what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And in 2023, it took flight, and boom, I started to make changes. And with those changes, and right now, once again, very small microcosm of the world, because as we can see with Stanley Cup, you'll hear talking heads online people who are in, the business world and they provide services to people online, those individuals have maybe, saying, oh, businesses hasn't been the same. I took some hits. My money wasn't as fluid as it was, during the pandemic, and everybody had all this PPP money. But once again, that's a very small segment of the population, because since I was very clear on who I work with, who I want to serve, I knew that all those things would not matter to the market that I wanted to provide services to. Same way with the Stanley Cup. Stanley Cup has always had their core customer. Whether hysteria took place or not, or took flight, they've always had their core customer. They've been around for 110 years. They're doing something right. There's clearly, even though you may be not buying the Stanley Cup, and even though I may not be buying the Stanley Cup, but somebody's buying them Stanley Cups. And whoever that market is, Stanley Cup has, they know that their revenues are going to hit the bottom line and put them in the black. And so, how does this all come together? What do I mean with all this as I bring it together? Title of this video being The Stanley Cup in Real Estate and Business Funding Success. Who is your core client? Who are you talking to? Who is whether you're the business owner that's providing the services, or you're someone like me and you're either providing it to a particular market. And that's why I made it clear when I said all business funding isn't the same. Yeah, I know this one's saying they do business funding, and that one's saying they do business funding. And this one is also saying they help real estate investors leverage capital. And you're saying that too. But what differentiates you all? And that's why I said with me, I'm not the person to come to if you're looking for a credit card. If all you want is that one credit card, your goal is to get a Platinum American Express, and from that is going to, allow you to be and learn. It's going to stratosphere you to becoming a real estate tycoon. By all means, that's not me. If you're looking for a secret lenders list, there's a secret list that's going to tell you how you can magically go to certain credit bureaus and get certain types of cards. That's not me. That's not me. But let me tell you who I am. I am that business funding specialist who works with real estate investors who are looking to leverage capital, who is looking to take on debt, and they understand the advantages of debt, and they are a investor who is seasoned. They have did deals, and they know the impact of how leveraging capital can help them expand and increase their real estate portfolio. And they are looking at all areas of capital, not just credit cards. They're looking at term loans. They're looking at lines of credit. They are looking for ways to raise capital, and they want to know how they can use the expertise to be able to expand their real estate portfolio. Much different than a person who has never invested in real estate, and now they think that this magic credit card is their ticket. Much different. And so I say this to say, although I am not a Stanley Cup buyer, have never purchased one, I'm not their target market, but are you the Stanley Cup in your industry? Are you the Stanley Cup? Or are you going to allow outside forces, what the economy is doing, interest rates, what else are they telling you all, of lack of inventory of real estate? People aren't buying, people scared to buy, the banks aren't lending, whatever the case may be. Are you being affected by those things? And if you are, you may want to take a change, or you may want to change some things that you are doing, because We are now in 2024 as I film this video / podcast, and I'm here to tell you, look at what Stanley is doing, and there are a lot of business success tips that you can take from that company and apply it to whatever you are doing. So once again, this is Lorelia. I am signing off. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Give me a thumbs up. If you're listening on any of the podcasting platforms, please leave me a review. Let me know your thoughts. Please save it. I forget whatever you got to do with these podcasting apps. I think you got to follow or what have you. I'm going to figure it out. But I know, as always, it's always going to be on YouTube. Let's continue to move forward in 2024. My goal is to do less content and give you more context. I'll talk about that in the next podcast video that I do / audio, where I talk more about less content, more context, how that relates to how I can provide value to the marketplace, and can't wait to talk about it the next time. Until then, this is Lorelia signing off. It's always been a pleasure. To learn more about me, if you are new to what I have provided to you today, go to the links that are either in the show notes on the podcasting site or here on YouTube. It'll be right under this video in the description area. Okay, and have a great day. Bye-bye.